Okay, are you able to see the title slide okay?
Yes.
Okay,
Thank
perfect. All right, thank you so much. I'm going to move around my screen here real quick. Okay. All right. Well, thank you so much, everyone, for joining us today. I'm so excited to be able to share this information with you. So, welcome to the Mediterranean Diet on a Budget. So, we're going to be talking about a dietary pattern for healthy living today. My name is Amber Webb. I'm with CSU Extension. And as CSU Extension agents, which is my role, we're dedicated to serving the current and future needs of Colorado by providing science-based information and programs to safeguard health, increase livelihood, and enhance well-being of all. So this is the reason that I'm bringing this programming to you today. And the next slide I have here is our equal opportunity access and non-discrimination statement from CSU. If you have questions about this, I'm happy to answer those for you. You can reach out to me after the presentation. So today we have a few objectives that I'd like to work through and that you can leave with. So we're going to learn the key characteristics of and the health benefits of the Mediterranean lifestyle, and then we're going to talk about easy tips for following the Mediterranean lifestyle, and then discovering strategies for incorporating it in a budget-friendly way, and have those incorporated into healthy habits for your life. So, the Mediterranean diet describes a lifestyle or a dietary pattern characteristic of those living in regions around the Mediterranean Sea. Okay. Now, where this came from was a researcher by the name of Ansel Keys, and he did a 7 country study published in 1970. So, this was a landmark study that was based on the observation that residents in those regions around the Mediterranean Sea had the lowest rates of coronary heart disease of any region studied across the world. Okay. So that's where this is coming from originally. So although it's called a diet, the Mediterranean diet isn't something that you typically might see as fad diets in the United States and many popular diets that come and go. Really, what it is, it's a more of a way of life, or as we'll say, lifestyle or dietary pattern. And you'll see me say that throughout the presentation. It's not a strict diet. So there are some things that we've learned about the way that people live in this region that was really taken away from this study, and we'll be focusing on that, okay? So, what are those key lifestyle characteristics of the Mediterranean diet? What we see is leisurely, mindful eating. We see active lifestyle. We see variety, mostly plant-based foods that people are eating, and then smaller portions for what we're used to here in the United States, okay? So the secret or key to this lifestyle or dietary pattern is that you can eat the foods that you like, but you just need to be mindful and eat smaller portions of some of the foods, more beneficial foods that are recommended. And we'll be talking about that as we go through. So before I jump in on that, I just wanted to make a quick little insert about how important the health benefits are of the Mediterranean diet. Because this was done in the 1970s and research on all of these areas that I'm talking about continues to grow, we know this for sure, that when you adapt more of the Mediterranean diet into your lifestyle, the more closely you follow that diet, the lower incidence of these diseases that you see are occurring. So you are decreasing your risk factor by following these key components of this Mediterranean lifestyle. So you'll see a reduction in the risk of cancer and cardiovascular disease, metabolic syndrome, Alzheimer's disease, cognitive decline, Parkinson's, and diabetes. And I've had so many folks come to this class saying, I signed up for this because my doctor recommended this diet to me. So it's just all good things. And so anything that you take away today, you might just start with a couple things. And as you work that into your lifestyle, it won't be something that you have to think of on a constant basis. It'll be a part of your routine. And the more you do that, each one of these things that we'll be talking about today, the better off you'll be. Now, the key dietary characteristics of the Mediterranean diet are specific as well. So we're going to talk through that. So what you see here is the Mediterranean diet pyramid. I do have this as a part of the handout, so you can take this, you can put this on your refrigerator, you can really kind of use it as motivation. I think it's fantastic. And what I love about this from the larger perspective is that it incorporates all of the things that I just talked about, those key characteristics into the pyramid itself. So you might think about the old USDA food guide pyramid and now our current MyPlate. It's set up in a much different way, right? So look at this. At the beginning or at the base of the pyramid, you see physical activity and enjoying meals with others in a relaxed setting. So really be physically active is what this is saying, and do it in a way that you enjoy it. Do it something that you're going to look forward to, that feels good to you, and that is just a natural part of your routine of your daily life. Okay, right above that is fruits and vegetables, whole grains, olive oil, legumes, herbs, and spices. They're consumed nearly with every meal, and these foods make up the bulk of the meal that you consume. Right above that are fish and seafood, and fish and seafood are consumed a few times a week. Above that is eggs, cheese, yogurt, and poultry. In the Mediterranean region, they're eaten on a weekly basis, maybe a couple of times a week, but in, again, modest proportions. And then above that, you'll see red meats and sweets are at the very top, and they're consumed the least often, okay? Just a couple of times a month. But you can also go on the other side of that food pyramid, you see red wine. Drinking a glass of red wine in moderation with your meal is something that's often seen, and then drinking plenty of water. Okay. So think about how this looks in the structure of versus how you eat, or think about some of the comparisons that already fit with you, and maybe start thinking through some of the things that you might already begin to change. Now that it's springtime, I just spent the weekend working in the yard and I got to clean up a lot of the wintertime things that were laying around. And so, raking up those old leaves, that's some really great activity and it was an enjoyable thing to do. So, your activity can change. It doesn't have to be the same every single day, it can change seasonally. So, here are the key dietary characteristics of the Mediterranean lifestyle. I have these listed out for you, but what I'm going to do is I'm going to break these down a little bit further as we go through so we can talk about some of the specifics, okay? So the first one is limiting the intake of highly processed foods. So first of all, the folks that live in this region, the Mediterranean region, have a very limited intake of highly processed foods. They just don't have the same kind of food system that we have here in the United States. And a highly processed food often have high amounts of sodium, sugar, artificial flavors, colors, and at the same time have less fiber, vitamins, and minerals. Unfortunately, that is the way that our food system is set up. In the abundance that we have, we just don't have really high quality nutrient value in a lot of the foods that we eat. Okay. So it's really best to eat most foods in their original whole form because you'll generally get more nutrients per calorie in this form. So what does that mean? A whole food is something that's been processed or refined as little as possible and is free of additives or other artificial substances. Okay. So the second is choosing whole grains. And in this region, folks are consuming whole grains more often than refined or white grains, as you might see. And when grains are processed and refined, what happens to them physically, really, when they're processed, is that you see there on the outside of that the wheat kernel here the bran is taken off, and on the inside, the germ is also removed. And so all of those fiber, the vitamins and minerals are stored mostly in those two parts of that grain. And when those are taken out, you lose a lot of that nutrition, right? And so when you're looking for whole grains, what you need to do is look on your food label and what you're going to do is you're going to look at that ingredient. And if you see the first ingredient listed as whole wheat or whole grain, you know that those vitamins and minerals are still in there. Okay. Now, what you can do as some other tips is you can actually start using, if you haven't already, start using whole wheat flour instead of white flour when baking. That can replace a lot of the nutrition. It definitely will change the texture and the final product of, any kind of a baked good or bread or anything that you make. But you can experiment with those ratios and see what works for you. Okay. So something else that's also recommended is to experiment with whole grains, other ones like quinoa, farro, or bulgur. If you don't recognize these at the grocery stores that you currently shop at, you can try a different one. So more of like a natural grocer that has different kinds of varieties available to you. I personally go to about 2 or 3 different grocery stores throughout the month to get things in bulk that are such as things like this, quinoa, farro, bulgur. I eat all of these things. I can't get it at a typical grocery store, so I have like my spots that I go to so that I have access to all the things that I need. And then with those grains, these are really great things to experiment with adding to soups, sprinkling on salads, including in your oatmeal, even adding to casseroles is a really great way to get that into your diet. Okay, so different kinds of grains can definitely range in cost, okay? So something that you can definitely do is purchase grains in bulk. So sometimes people think when you think of bulk, you think of like a big box store where you purchase something in a really large quantity if you have like a large family. That doesn't always work for people because they have a smaller household or they're living, on their own. When you purchase grains in bulk, what this can mean is going to a grocery store that has the bins, kind of, I'm thinking like kind of upper level, where they are in like a plastic bin, and then you pull down a lever, and then you measure out exactly how much you want to purchase. You can buy a cup at a time or a half a cup at a time. And then it's often very inexpensive because you measure out exactly what you want. And then you're not putting the money into an entire package that you may or you may not like. And anytime you purchase something in packaging, you're also paying for the packaging, right? So you could also experiment with less expensive brands. There is a range of brands available that are selling the exact same thing. So look at that. Look at the cost for you in that way. That can make a big difference as well. If you don't already check the bakery markdowns, I would highly recommend that you do that. There's a couple grocery stores that I go to that will have the day-old bread or the 2-day-old bread that are very high quality, that are local bakeries that they also stock, especially here for Colorado, that you can get for a really great price. It's all whole grains, and then you can freeze that bread. Frozen bread is such a great option because you can have it for several months in your refrigerator, your freezer, excuse me, and then take out a slice at a time. So that's a really great option. If you've not made your own bread before, it can be a really great, cost-effective thing to do and so much fun. So such a really great experiment and practice to make regular bread. And then another thing for breakfast is eating oats. If you're used to eating the instant oats, this is something that they're already broken down kind of mostly into a powder form to cook quickly. But really, rolled oats are something that are very easy to make and just as quick. So if you've not done an overnight oats, I would highly recommend trying that. So you pour out your oats, you pour out either some kind of a milk or water, and then you add your toppings into it. I love adding nuts and fruit and a little bit of salt, a little bit of powder, cinnamon powder or cardamom, that kind of thing, and then just stir it up and put it in your refrigerator. And then overnight, all of that soaks into the grain, and then you can either eat that cold, so kind of like a muesli, or you can heat it up. It's a really great option. And oats are just so fantastic for us. They're actually one of the highest in fiber of all the grains, and they just do wonders for your health. So people in this region also eat a wide variety of fruits and vegetables, and so we'll talk about that now. Think of the rainbow of color that's available to you with different fruits and vegetables. And I really love these photos because it kind of gives you an example of that rainbow. So different fruits and vegetables that have those different colors have different nutrients in them. So if you are eating a wider range of color, you are likely getting a larger variety of nutrients. Okay. So when you eat those vegetables and fruit seasonally, and if you can eat them locally, you are going to be getting such a wide and beautiful variety of nutrition um, versus eating kind of the same thing over and over and over again. Okay. Um, Now, vegetables also make up a larger portion of the meal with every meal. So we'll talk about that next. But then fruit is also eaten as a dessert. So think about how you might incorporate fruit into dessert. So here's some tips for getting more fruits and veggies into your diet. So having that plate filled with fruits and vegetables at every meal and having that at least half of your plate. Select a variety of different tastes and textures and nutrients. One of the things that we know about the human brain is that when we're looking for a snack, when we're hungry, we're generally going to go for something that's convenient. So, research actually has been done on this. Back when I was in nutrition in school, they actually did some research that showed if you cut up fruits and vegetables and you prepare them, they're ready to go. And if you do that and you put it in the front of your refrigerator when you open the door, pretty much no matter who it is in your family is going to see that. It's going to be quick and easy. They can grab it and they can eat it. You're making the best choice, the easiest choice. And if you can prepare that weekly for yourself, you will most often reach for that fruit or vegetable more than anything else that you might have to prepare. Okay. So just like a little, it's kind of like a little mind trick that is really beneficial for you. So we recommend not getting stuck in a rut. So if you don't already do these types of cooking methods, so sauteing or steaming, blanching or roasting, give this a try. Give a different cooking method a try. There are some really wonderful cooking schools out there, ways that you can go to a cooking class, just a one-off kind of thing. And then the internet is full of so many cooking videos where you can try to increase your cooking skills. And that can go so far by just having more versatility in the kitchen and feeling more confident. And when you have more kitchen skills, you can feel a lot more confident about the fruits and the vegetables that you get because you know that you can prepare them in a multiple number of ways and not just be stuck to like a specific recipe. So something else that's recommended is also eating more vegetables at breakfast. You can have tomatoes or cucumbers on your toast, maybe with a little bit of hummus. Include sauteed veggies in an omelet. Add spinach or other greens to a smoothie. The thing about when you eat more vegetables is that think about like how big a bowl of salad is, right? Um, what happens is when you eat more vegetables, think about the size of your stomach. It's a few cups and it can expand, about 8 ounces or so. It can expand when you eat. But when you eat vegetables, because they're bulky and they're fibrous, they actually give you the physical feeling of being fuller. And when that happens, you slow down and you don't need to eat as much. So that physical fullness feeling is such a key part of eating more vegetables, and they will help you feel fuller longer because it takes your body longer to digest that fiber and move it through your system. So vegetables at breakfast. So think about some ways that you might be able to add those. So here's some budget-friendly tips we have for produce. We are coming into the farmers market season, but you typically, when you are purchasing produce from a local farm, you are going to get the best deal versus what you might get in the grocery store for seasonal produce. So our farmers markets around Colorado, a lot of them that I'm aware of are enrolled in being available for using your SNAP benefits. And many of them are enrolled in a program called Double Up Bucks, where you can, if you have SNAP benefits, you can take them and they will match a certain percentage of the money that you have to spend at the market that day. They will match that. And so you can double your money at some local farmers markets. So take a look and see if that's available in your area. It's a wonderful time to start thinking about planting a garden. If you don't have a lot of space, maybe you have a space on your back step for a couple of pots. I like to eat a lot of herbs. That's pretty much all I have room for is a few little garden herb boxes. But think about the price of some herbs in the small package. It's generally about $2 or $3. Think about getting a little herb starter, and that's about $2 or $3. And if you can nurse and take care of that all season long, you can save a lot of money doing that. But when something also you can do is stock up when items are on sale or in season, and then learning how to preserve that extra produce for later on. So I actually do have some food preservation classes that I teach throughout the year that if you're interested in, you can absolutely let me know and I can get that information to you. And that includes freezing extras and dehydrating things. You can also try canning or try canned or frozen fruits that have that don't have added salt or sugar or sauces because that extra salt and sugar and sauce and extra ingredients kind of can get you into a trap of extra things that you don't want. Okay. So the next Mediterranean portion of the excuse me of the pyramid is consuming less red meat. Okay, so red meat is only consumed a few times a month, and seafood, poultry, and eggs are consumed more often than other animal-based proteins. And then beans, nuts, and seeds, those plant-based proteins, are consumed a lot more often and daily. So what you're seeing here on the right is hummus. This is a ubiquitous food in the region. It provides some protein because it's made from fava beans, garbanzo beans, and often has a healthy olive oil in it, and it has healthy fiber in it as well. If you've not experienced hummus before, I would highly recommend it. It's a really wonderful snack and a really great spread for sandwiches and things like that. Now, picking your protein wisely is something we wanted to mention because protein can be very expensive depending on what you're getting. Um, the diet does recommend aiming to eat fish 1 to 2 times a week, and a serving of fish is 3 to 4 ounces. You can also add legumes, such as dry beans, as your source of protein at least a couple of times a week. And legumes is a half a cup per serving. So think about maybe the size of servings that you're using currently. Okay. Now, poultry is also another great option. It's a lean protein, and the serving size is 3 to 4 ounces. You can definitely get chicken breasts that are more than double that size at the grocery store. So think about that as you are bringing that home and maybe portioning that out. So if you're consuming red meat, it's also recommended to choose lean cuts of meat and appropriate size portions as well, 3 to 4 ounces. And then keeping the right kind of nuts available for you is a really great option. So almonds, cashews, pistachios, walnuts. There's so many more that aren't listed here. Those are a great thing to do to have on hand for a quick snack. And then with peanut butter, just a quick mention, there are a lot of brands out there that have extra oil added to their nut butters, whether it's peanut butter, almond butter, cashew butter, you name it. Most often, more often than not, I would say, they include some kind of a palm oil or hydrogenated oil to keep it creamy and smooth. But what you can look for is just to look for, and some products might even say natural on the front, but when you look at the back, those oils are still in it. You're just looking for whatever nut butter it is, and then salt, or some don't even have salt. And that is something just to keep an eye out for so you don't get those extra fats in your diet. Or you can go to grocery stores that they have the nut or the whatever kind of nut it is, they're in a grinder and then you actually grind it fresh right on site. And then you have your little container, you can get that there. So that's an option as well. If you've not tried tahini, that's a really great option. This is something that is used very widely in the Mediterranean region. And tahini is basically just a butter, like a nut butter, but it's made from sesame seeds. So it's ground sesame seeds. So you can use that in place of other nut butters. So protein can be expensive. We talked about that just a little bit ago, but What you can do for some budget-friendly options is to buy seafood in cans, in pouches, or in plain frozen ounce, 3 to 4 ounce portions. These can all be very economical. If you have the ability, you have the knowledge to purchase dried beans, I would highly recommend it. It is very much more economical even than canned beans when they're not on sale because of the amount that you get versus the cost. So you can get a pound of dry beans often for 99 cents or so, and that's going to get you a lot farther than what 99 cents in a can might get you. So look for sales, and when the beans are on sale and they can last in your pantry, I would highly recommend stocking up on that. And then if you do get beans that have salt already on them, here's a little tip that you can save on that salt. You can rinse the beans or any kind of fruit or vegetable, well, really probably not fruits, but more vegetables. If you rinse those with water for a minute or so, you will actually rinse off about 75% of the sodium. So remember that, but there are also, I believe, a lot more canned proteins, beans, and vegetables that are now offering salt-free versions. But I often just rinse them as well. So it's just a habit I've gotten into. So that's a good thing that you can do with some of your pantry options. Another great tip is nuts can be very pricey. So if you purchase them in bulk, you can store those in 1 ounce portions. So think about if you have some little, little kind of Tupperware containers or bags or something like that that you can reuse, you can get something in bulk, save a lot of money on that, and then portion it out into the 1 ounce portions that you can take on the go. Um, Eggs are expensive right now. We're all seeing that. If you can buy 18 per carton compared to a dozen, this is usually a better buy. And eggs generally can last a pretty good amount of time in the refrigerator. And we do have research that shows that you can go several weeks past that best by date for eggs, 3 to 5 weeks even. So eggs will last longer than you think. So that if you're trying to think about how many you'll go through in that amount of time, know that you can go just a little bit farther and they'll be fine. If your egg is bad, you will know. It's going to smell terrible. Often eggs are going to be fresh for quite a while. And then purchasing beef, pork, and poultry less often, really just having meatless meals more often will reduce your intake of saturated fat and calories, and it's going to save you money because animal proteins are just going to cost more than plant proteins. And just a quick reminder too on that. When you do purchase meat that has bones in it, whether it is like a rotisserie chicken or a steak that has a bone in it, you can actually save those bones, put them in the freezer, and then make stock out of them later on. So that's another kind of budget-friendly tip that you can use, and also reducing food waste at the same time. I really like to save my vegetable scraps when I'm chopping celery or carrots or onions, parsley, celery, any kind of herbs that I have. Fennel, I love to do that too. I keep that in a bag. And then when in the freezer, and then when I get a rotisserie chicken, I save those bones as well. When my vegetable bag is full, I put the two together and I make a chicken vegetable broth. I drink it throughout the week, but then I also will put it in a like little muffin tins or like an ice cube tray, freeze those for a couple hours, put those in a freezer container, and then I have homemade broth whenever I need it. It's a really great way to reduce waste that way as well. So the next portion we're going to talk about is using olive oil as a main source of fat. And that can reduce your consumption of more highly saturated fats, such as butter, other kinds of oils. And what we have seen through this study is that up to 40% of total calories coming from olive oil a day is something that's actually very common in that region, which is kind of seems a little bit mind blowing, but that's what we've seen. You can also eat olives in whole form, putting them in salad, um, on wraps or on sandwiches, on pizza, that kind of thing. But then you can also use olive oil on a variety of meals as well. So soup, bread, pasta, and meats, doing a little drizzle. So when you are using olive oil as a healthy placement replacement for butter or margarine, you can use that in several different ways. So think about dipping bread in olive oil, adding to pasta as a replacement for heavy cream sauce, adding to soups to add flavor, complexity. I like to do a little drizzle of olive oil and some like red pepper flakes on top of my soup, and it always just is just such a nice little addition. Kind of feels fancy, like what you'd see in a nicer restaurant. Um, and then combining olive oil and vinegar to make your salad dressings. There's so many extra ingredients in salad dressings that are made to emulsify and preserve to make it shelf stable. But when you just use olive oil and different kinds of vinegar that you might like to experiment with, there's just so much variety that you can use for dressing vegetables that is just so flavorful and so healthy for you. And I actually had a woman in one of my classes that I taught a few months ago who said that her husband grew up on a dairy farm and he was very, very picky about very high quality butter because he grew up on it. And as she learned a little bit more about the Mediterranean diet, she started to um, take the butter that they used and she would let it sit out at room temperature and then she would mix it with olive oil and then let it harden again just to replace some of that butterfat content. And she said she got up to about half and half in the ratio and felt really good about it. And she said her husband never said anything. He never noticed the taste difference. And she felt pretty good about having that replacement. So you might even try that. If you really like butter, use it in moderation and maybe try to, mix in some olive oil with it. And while you're at it, I would say add in some fresh herbs as well. Those are always just fantastic in like a butter spread for different kinds of things. So, I wanted to make a quick mention about the different types of olive oil. It's recommended to use extra virgin olive oil as most often as you can. You are going to get the highest quality kind of product if you use extra virgin. You're going to use that on dips, salads, drizzled on fish, drizzled on vegetables, roasted vegetables. You're really just going to get the most flavor and the most nutritional benefit out of that. You might also see in the grocery store that you shop at virgin olive oil, just straight olive oil, light, and then pomace. I once had a woman who was from Italy. She was very close to the olive oil industry. She just couldn't even believe this was on this list. This is basically what's left over from making olive oil. And so this is mostly used in frying or cooking. You're not going to find this kind of thing in the grocery store, but just for the sake of the different types of grades that are out there, this is something that's out there. Now, olive oil can be expensive, and more often than not, it is going to be expensive. And so, different grocery stores definitely different have different prices. And so, don't just take what's available in the grocery store that you go to most often as the only thing that's available. I would definitely try to look at other warehouse stores or international grocery stores for great deals. You can definitely find olive oil on sale just in different areas. And then when you find that, that can be your source, okay? Um, and then save that extra virgin olive oil for salads and finishing instead of cooking with it. Maybe just use just the one previously, just olive oil for cooking with. Only buy the amount that you can use and use it within the next few months. So let's say you get a large container of olive oil. Maybe you can share that with family or with neighbors so that it doesn't go rancid. You do want to make sure that you're using it quickly. And then you'll probably notice the olive oil is sold in green bottles or in the metal tins in definitely different sizes. And that's because heat and light can increase the rancidity of the oil. So keeping it in a dark, cool place, storing it in a darker bottle will help keep it fresher for longer. Okay. And so putting it right next to the stove maybe is not the best option. Maybe just a little bit farther away um, is something that's might be available to you as well. So We also in the diet see eating moderate amounts of dairy. Okay, so the key word really in this is moderate. So more often than not, dairy is eaten in the form of cheese, like feta, and Greek yogurt, not like milk as a beverage. So Greek yogurt is thicker and it contains more protein. It contains less carbohydrates than regular yogurt does. And so for this reason, it might be better for somebody with diabetes to eat Greek yogurt. But full fat, plain yogurts are usually the choice of Mediterraneans. Again, they're eating smaller portions, and it's eaten once a day or just a few times a week instead of multiple times throughout the day. So a serving of yogurt is 1 cup, and a serving of cheese is is 1 ounce. Okay, and that 1 ounce is the size of 2 or 3 dice. So think about if you really love feta, you want to put it as a part of your salad, 2 or 3 dice. You can see each one of these slices of feta here on this tray is probably about a serving. And once that gets crumbled up, that can go pretty far on a salad, right? If you don't have a particular brand of Greek yogurt that you like, or it's pricey, or you just want to experiment a little bit, you can make your own Greek yogurt. And you do that by buying plain unflavored yogurt, and then you take a strainer and a cheesecloth or even a paper towel. You can dump that yogurt out, and then the whey will drain off of that. The whey is super high in protein. You can store that and use that in baked goods. You can put it in your oats to add extra um, protein to your oats. You can add it to smoothies. It's a great, very nutritious part of the yogurt. But then what you'll get is you'll get a much thicker yogurt that you can enjoy. You can add fruit like you see here, or you can add herbs and spices to make it more of a savory yogurt, or even use that as a dip. I really love to use Greek yogurt with lemon zest and fresh herbs and a little bit of salt and use that as a dip for things. So, some more budget-friendly tips for dairy and snack kinds of things. I just mentioned making your own Greek yogurt, but what you'll do when you make those kinds of things is that will help you to purchase lower or less of the low nutrient, high price snacks, such as sweetened individual yogurts. Just visualize your yogurt section in your grocery store. In my opinion, there's too many varieties of yogurt. Most often when yogurt is low in fat, it's high in sugar because when a company takes the fat out of a product, they have to replace that flavor because fat is flavor with sugar. And so often the individual flavored yogurts are going to have so much sugar in them, and it really is just kind of a trap. So making your own is just so highly recommended and so much more economical. But things like pretzels and potato chips and special crackers, all those kinds of snack foods can be really pricey, and again have a lot of much less nutrition than if you're going to make something on your own. So we talked about making your own yogurt, but also you might like to try making your own hummus or lentil spreads and eat those with carrot chips and celery. If you've got bagels, whole grain bagels, you can make those into pita chips or other kinds of things, or bagel chips, excuse me, or pita chips. There's a lot of great options that you can use for different kinds of snacks. And then red wine. It might be some people's favorite component of the diet. Yet again, it needs to be consumed in moderation. So, what the American Heart Association has recommended is that moderation is 1 serving daily for women and 2 servings daily for men. And 1 serving is 5 ounces. Okay, you might be surprised at that, depending on the size of, typical wine glasses. It's okay if it's okay with your doctor, have a glass of wine at dinner, but you don't need to start drinking if you don't already drink alcohol. Um, if you would prefer to drink grape juice, that component, that resveratrol in the wine is a component that's health that we consider as healthier for you. And so that can also be found in grape juice. It doesn't have anything specifically to do with the fermentation of wine. It doesn't need to be expensive. Uh, and then with other drinks, drinks can be one of the most costly things I think at the grocery store. Drinks are very expensive. So thinking about what you might like to do to stay hydrated, we recommend using a reusable water bottle so that you can keep track of how much water you're drinking. But it's a perfect season to start adding fruit or herbs into your water. It's so wonderful, so refreshing. As you can see here on the picture, we've got some limes and some mint together and some lemon. That's just so delicious. But really reducing the drinks that you're eating, that you're taking out, so going out for coffee, that kind of thing. Buying things at home, drinking them at home is good. Maybe not as fun, but we'll save you money. Um, Having a spritzer with wine that can make your wine last longer, limiting bottled soda, anything like that that is going to cost a lot more will really definitely save you money. And then if there's something that you just really love to drink, you don't want to give it up, think about if it comes in different sizes. So I know that there are some, I just was at the grocery store recently where like alternative milk, like almond milk and oat milk and those kinds of things come in large containers. They also come in individual servings, even, just the classic little milk box. Um, those are going to be more expensive if you're buying single servings. So maybe getting the larger one will save you a little bit of money. There's so many different options available to you in this category. So if something else comes to mind, definitely use that as well. Okay, so the last component of the diet that we're going to talk about is incorporating fresh herbs and spices. So those living in the Mediterranean region use so many fresh herbs and spices in their meals to add flavor, to add color, to add variety. And what has been found kind of in this realm is that when you use fresh herbs and spices, you add so much flavor and so much complexity and interest into the food that you're cooking that it can really stand in place of salt and sugar. So you might want to try, I love this photo here of the mortar and pestle, getting a mortar and pestle. If you have dried spices and you've had them in your cabinet for a little while, when you open them up, they may not smell like anything. And I'm thinking specifically like dill as an herb, dried herb. When I open up a dill, often it doesn't smell like anything. But when you add it into a mortar and pestle, it grinds it up, it wakes up that flavor, those oils again, and can really refresh what you have in that bottle. But it's not recommended to keep your spices and your herbs in those little spice bottles for more than 6 months or so. But if you keep them for longer than that, then this is a really great way to liven them up. But also, grinding up fresh herbs, I'm thinking like looking at the basil or the mint here, using a mortar and pestle and making kind of a pesto with it is also a really great way to add extra flavor. And it's just a fun extra thing to have in the kitchen that brings a lot of enjoyment, especially to me. So give it a try. No, they're not that hard to find, and they can be very inexpensive as well. So I mentioned just briefly before, growing your own herbs. That can really save you a lot of money. And when you have that available to you and it's just outside your back door or outside your kitchen window or maybe inside your kitchen window based on where you are, having those fresh herbs around you is just it's just such a pleasant and enjoyable thing to have. And if it's right available to you outside your back door, you are most often going to maybe right around dinner time, go and pick a few things and just smell it, enjoy it, put it in your drinks, put it in your cooking. It's just a fun thing to have in your life, a very enjoyable extra little moment of flavor and aroma. Can you tell I like herbs? I'm excited to get my garden of herbs started again this year. You can also put the stems of your herbs to add to soups and stocks, which I was talking about before, or even look into making your own infused sugars and salts with fresh herbs. Hopefully, I've gotten you excited about that for this season. And then just a few extra additional budget friendly tips. If you don't already, shopping store brands and comparing stores can really save you a lot of money. I have noticed some products from one grocery store to the next that can vary a couple of dollars, which is significant enough to put it on one grocery store versus the other. Um, and then shopping for recommended portions per person. That is making sure that you're not buying things that you are not going to go through in time. So this will help you to reduce food spoilage in your home. So if you are shopping sales and you're buying in bulk, these are really great options. You just want to make sure that you're not wasting anything and you make sure to get through it in the amount of time before it starts to spoil. Something that you can do almost with almost everything is if you don't get to something, you can always freeze it. And there's specific ways that you can freeze things to have that quality in the freezer last longer than if you're to just kind of throw it in a container that maybe has leaks of air leaks in it or something like that. You can learn more about that later on through some freezing material that I have as well. Planning meals can really help save money. It can save, eating out, not knowing what you're eating at the end of the day or the end of the week. You'll always want to go out. So planning ahead of time can really be helpful. And then using your leftovers to plan for snacks or to use for different meals can really be helpful. If you don't already, consider looking at manufacturer stores and store coupons to save money there. And then that eating out component is really will be a big cost savings for your budget. Okay, so we're at the end of the presentation of all the specifics, and I am just going to go through and give us just a quick review and takeaways for following the Mediterranean lifestyle. So again, thinking about that pyramid, be mindful. Plan your meals, making a grocery list, shopping with intention. Sit down to eat and avoid eating on the go. I know sometimes we really just can't get away with that, but sitting will help you to be more mindful of the food that you're eating. You will feel fuller. You will be more satiated instead of just, powering through a meal while you're on the go. Enjoy your meals with your family and friends. This is just so beneficial for your overall health, for your mental health. And then eating your food slowly. If you don't say grace, many people do, many people don't. Just taking the time to notice your food before you start your meal, by smelling the texture, or smelling, noticing the texture, the flavor, the whole kind of process of cooking and then preparing it for you. Just it really will help you be more mindful and will help you enjoy your meal more than if you're eating it on the go. And it also does help prevent overeating when you do that. And then staying active, it's just as important for our overall health as and key to the Mediterranean diet as anything else. The recommendation is to aim for 150 minutes per week. This is by the American Heart Association. And what that looks like is 30 minutes a day and just getting your heart rate up a little bit. So you might just be a little bit breathless. Or I had someone describe moderate activity is walking like you're late to somewhere. If you can walk like you're late, you are doing fantastic for that moderate exercise. And it doesn't have to be 30 minutes in a day if you don't have 30 minutes. Maybe it's 10 minutes before work, 10 minutes at lunch, 10 minutes after work. You can split that up through the day. You can park at the back of the parking lot when you go get groceries. You can take the stairs instead of the elevator. Um, shoveling snow, doing gardening, riding a bike, any of those things add up through the course of your day. So if you don't already have a Fitbit, maybe that's a good option to get. That will record all of those little steps that you take through the day to add up to overall health. So really, whatever is good for you, how you like to move, do more of that. And then water is so important for hydration, especially during exercise. And then lastly, it's recommended to make these changes gradually. So what we know is that it takes about 21 days to make or break a habit. And so be patient with yourself. And we recommend to do one change at a time. When you do that for 21 days, it will become a normal habit, a normal part of your lifestyle, and it won't feel overwhelming trying to make all of these changes at once. So, when you continually make small changes and you stick with it will be so much easier to make it a lifestyle change. And then you won't have to think about it anymore. And then you will be so much farther than where you were, several months prior. So think about how far you can get in 6 months with making some of these small changes. So big key takeaway is that this lifestyle, this Mediterranean diet lifestyle, is not about restriction. So think about maybe not the things that you need to take away, but what are the things that you can add? And eventually, the more you add, the things that you thought you needed to take away will slowly start to get pushed out, and it doesn't take as much effort. And be kind to yourself. You can have the foods that you like, enjoy them mindfully and in the right portions. Okay. And the more changes you make, the better off you'll be over time. Okay, that is the presentation. I would love to answer any questions. We do have a few minutes, Jeremiah,
Put
if we've
those
got
in,
any questions or,
yeah, I put those in
yeah,
chat. If it's easier for you, I can read them off.
sure. Let's
Uh,
see.
One was a comment from Deborah. Just read results of latest study on alcohol, on moderate use of alcohol shared by the WHO organization. Um, Moderate, is it not helpful to us in that all alcohol has capacity to be harmful on some levels?
Yeah, I think I actually heard of that study recently. We have not had time to update this curriculum since then, but because this is information that we've had since the 70s, it's very long term, and I know that new research is coming up all the time, even with coffee consumption, that it's always like, is coffee good for you? Is it not good for you? And that's, I think, why we said in this presentation specifically, you don't need to start drinking alcohol if you don't already, but the American Heart Association does have those limits still out there. And when that does change, we will absolutely update it. But if you don't feel that it's appropriate for you, then absolutely do what's right for you.
Great, thank you.
Great question.
Another question that came in from Barbara is, what about grits as a form of, the carbohydrates you were mentioning?
Grits, definitely. So I think grits definitely have a place in the diet, but they are made of corn, and so they are not going to have quite as much protein as the other whole grains will have. But I don't think that they are something that you need to worry about cutting out. I think this diet really does emphasize having a wide variety of foods and having things in moderation. It's not about cutting out an entire food group or an entire category of food, like other diets do.
Great.
If you feel good when you eat grits and you don't feel like it's spiking your blood sugar and it makes you feel full, then enjoy grits.
And another question that came in is regarding oats. So
Yeah,
let's see. What's the nutritional difference between steel cut and rolled oats?
I wish I had some nutrition labels on me. So from what I understand from my background in nutrition is that you're not going to see gram for gram difference in steel cut versus rolled oats. What you're seeing is a difference in how they're processed. So I like to think about the way that we metabolize different foods, different grains. This was a a little thing that I learned from a dietitian when I was in school, actually. So she said, I love the way she described it, think about your metabolism as a fire. And when you put a log on the fire, let's say a whole grain, think about what that does to your metabolism. So you put a log on the fire. How long does that take to break down? That fire is going to take a long time to break that log down versus if you were to put something like leaves or sawdust on that fire, what will happen? You'll get like an instant, you'll have instant energy and then it'll immediately go away. And so that's what happens when we eat things like the instant oats is that all of that has actually been broken down in rollers, and it's rolled down so much that it's almost already done some of that digestion for you. So think about the steel cut oat, which is the whole oat in its original form, all the way down to oat flour, right? Um, your body is actually going to take that. It's going to take longer for you to digest. You will feel fuller longer. And so when you're eating it close to the whole form, it's going to take you longer and you're going to feel fuller. And I think I just said that twice in a row, but that's the difference. The nutritional value is still there because it's just rolled, but your body will process it a little bit differently.
Thank you.
Mhm.
There was a comment. Do you have any information on coconut oil that you could share?
Coconut oil is definitely a very popular product out there. You'll probably see it all over the place in grocery stores. You'll see it in lots of recipes. Coconut oil does have its benefits, but it's still solid at room temperature. And because of that, it's a saturated fat. And so I would say it does have place in your diet, but I wouldn't recommend using it as a main source of fat. Use it where it makes sense in a recipe, maybe for flavor, that kind of thing. But again, that olive oil being from a plant source is really going to be the best kind of oil for you to use most
Thank
in most quantities.
Do you have any information regarding nutritional yeast?
Nutritional yeast, I actually use that. I have some sprinkled on my lunch salad for today. It's a really fantastic thing to use if you're a vegetarian. There's lots of B vitamins in it, so you're often not going to get a lot of like the minerals in meat that if you're a vegetarian, you're going to miss out on a lot of B vitamins basically. So nutritional yeast is a really great thing to use to replace some of those vitamins. Even if you do eat meat, I would recommend getting it to sprinkle on popcorn, sprinkle on your salads. It's just a really fantastic product to use, and I don't have anything bad to say about it per se.
Great. A
Mhm.
couple more questions and then we can wrap up.
Sure.
For Maria, what do you think of freeze-dried herbs in bottles sold in the produce area of grocery stores?
Yeah, I have not tried this product before, but freeze drying is something that's I feel like come into a lot of popularity recently in kind of my world. The product itself is I don't have any specific research-based background on specifically herbs, but to my knowledge, you're not losing any of the nutrition of the food that you freeze dry. So it would be just as nutritious as whether it's fresh or frozen or dehydrated or freeze dried. Freeze dried.
Great. And do
Mhm.
you have any grains that you recommend that are best for gluten-free?
Yeah, absolutely. So you can buy gluten-free oats that are certified gluten-free in several grocery stores that I have seen. That's a really great option. Other gluten-free grains recommended are quinoa, um, amaranth, uh, brown rice, I would say are the main ones.
Great. So this was our final question, unless
Okay,
anyone else has something. We're down to the last couple minutes. I did put the survey in the chat.
thank
If
you.
you haven't had a chance to do that, Amber would greatly appreciate it. It takes a
Mhm.
couple of minutes. Thank you, Amber. You've provided a wealth of information for us today. And I do appreciate you taking time out of your busy schedule. A quick reminder that a link will be coming out to you tomorrow to attendees with also the handout. So be on the lookout tomorrow coming from AARP. Again, Amber, thank you so much. And if you have any last minute remarks, please share with us. And again, thank you.
Wonderful. Thank you so much, Jeremiah. It was a pleasure to be with you all. Best of luck. And if you do have questions, you have my contact information. I'd love to chat with you more.